Hello and welcome to the Life by Design podcast, brought to you by Strategic. This podcast is all about helping you live your great life. Each episode will feature insights from our Chief Investment Officer, Doug Walters. Hello and welcome back to the Life by Design podcast. Joining me again this week is Doug Walters.
Hi, Jay. How are you?
Fantastic.
Great.
So this week we really wanted to touch on technology over the years and how from an investment planning we've used it and kind of bringing it to current and maybe ending it on AI and that. But really wanted to hit home. You know, as many of you at home listening, I'm sure know how technology has changed just over the last 15 to 16 years, let alone the last 20 or 30.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I thought it would be fun, and Doug and I thought it would be a good idea to kind of go back and talk about, you know, when Doug first started, how he used technology and what the technology was at the time.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great and could be a lot of fun. So I think, you know, it's when I think about technology through the years, it was really about two things. It was how do you access data, and then how do you analyze and manipulate that data? And even though you said, you know, let's go back to when Doug started in the industry, I'm going to go a little bit further back because this predates me slightly. But it wasn't that long ago when data would come in paper form. And there was this thing called the Ibbotson book, and some people around the office talk, lovingly about it. But that was the way. If you wanted to see, you know, the historical performance, the historical earnings, you know, Sharpe ratios, all the, you know, the metrics you might be interested in of a company like GE over the years, you would get your annual book, and you'd have all the history there, and you could, use that for your analysis. You know, look through, if you're looking for value companies, look through this data set. So it was paper form. It's not that computers didn't exist at the time, but that was, you know, the main form of dissemination.
Yeah. I think so. Just a little anecdotal here. It's funny because I think we all know in our lives, books are still a big part of life. But one of my kids is going off to college, and we were talking like for the intro, and we're like, okay, what, like, you're going to need books. Like we got to really think about this. And we were talking to one of the professors, and they were like, yeah, no, they don't need to buy books. Like, you're going to take that money, you're going to spend it on a computer, and then they're going to use the computer to access the information. I was like, oh, right.
Right. Exactly.
So, you know, I think books are still around and definitely good and have uses, but it's just funny. I wonder how far in the future, when we're on this podcast or whatever the technology is at the time, that books aren't even, like, to some of our listeners, they're gonna be like, what is a book?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Paper.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So books, and then what was the transition from there?
Yeah, and it wasn't, you know, that was even back when this book was coming out, and I'm gonna, you know, we'll call this the 80s. Mm-hmm. There were spreadsheets. There were early spreadsheets, so there was the potential to be analyzing this data on, you know, in Lotus 123 or Quattro Pro.
Yeah.
And but it was, you know, it was taking that data, putting it into your spreadsheet, and I can remember putting together models it was Quattro Pro at the time, and running out of columns. Like, and the spreadsheet wasn't that big, but there was a finite number of columns you could use. You ran out of it. Sorry, tough luck.
Man, that's wild. So one of our people here, Bob, was telling me that he would do the calculations by hand, put them in the spreadsheet, then have them printed out, then have someone else put them in a spreadsheet, then print them out, then he would have to check them again by hand to make sure all the calculations were correct and that it got transferred over correctly.
Right.
So as someone, you know, like, it's weird being in the generation that's highly lived in both worlds, where, like, I feel like part of my life was kind of in that world, but then all of a sudden I had to adapt very quickly to the new world. And it's interesting how much you forget about how the old technology and the old ways were. And then when you start thinking about it, you're like, I can't even believe
Yeah.
we survived to that. Like, how did that even?
Yeah. Yeah. If you told me there were a limit on the number of columns I could use in Excel, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, well, like, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Yeah. So, but in about this time, like Bloomberg was being developed. So Bloomberg Terminal is one of the main sources of financial information. And this is sort of, a step up from the Ibbotson book. You can access it directly. It was primarily for fixed income and trading at the time. FactSet, which is another big platform, also evolving back at this point in time, and that was more towards the buy side, so fund managers.
And these were like computers that would have access to this information,
right?
Kind of like some sort of database that was being updated.
Yeah, data compilers. So right, they're pulling data from various sources, giving you tools within that platform to be able to manipulate that data. So that was, if we're going back sort of again back to the 80s, 90s, these products were just evolving and developing. They're still around today, still very much in use today, but with a lot more functionality than they had at that time.
I'm sure, and quicker access to information, I would assume.
Quattro Pro, I don't think is still around, though. Or maybe it is. Who knows?
Yeah.
I have not.
As far as you're concerned, it's not around. And then I'm betting the internet probably changed a lot of this as that started to become a little bit more popular.
Yeah. The internet really democratized access to data. It started to move us much more towards that digital world. These platforms, Bloomberg and FactSet, were really developing, pre-internet. So they were that way to pull all this data together. The internet made access to data a little bit, again, more democratized. Think about, Yahoo Finance, which is still around today, was around quite a while ago, early days of the internet, a way to get easy access to financial data that would have just been, inaccessible to the average person historically.
Yeah, and I think that too, changed things into, as that technology grew, that access to data grew. From like my side, I've spent, the last 20 years on the web and on websites and building out tools, that do different things, and I think because the data comes so easily, that allows people to focus on the tool in which is processing and delivering that data.
Right, exactly. And I would say the other thing that has changed over time as information has become more and more readily available is where the alpha comes from, where the potential outperformance comes from. So there was a time when you could do very well stock picking, right? Fundamental analysis. If you had some sort of information asymmetry, you didn't have the Ibbotson paper book, but somehow you had access directly to live feeds of data, you're going to have a lot more information than the person that's waiting for the annual book of earnings. So you're going to have an ability to extract some outperformance out of that. That obviously has shrunk over time and has required investment managers like ourselves to look for different sources of outperformance. So as data becomes more readily available, that changes the way that we use the data as well.
Yeah. And I think that kind of starts to bring us into the now, right? Yeah. As we continue, and I everyone knows it's a news item, it's hot, is artificial intelligence, AI. And really, I think one of the things that gets missed a lot in the news and kind of this fever of AI is what it actually is at its core. And it's not this this being that can do everything, right? It really, in the way we use it, and I think you can say the same, is more of like augmenting what I'm doing now as a technology to just allow me to process that data even better.
Right. Yeah, I think of AI use being two different forms. One is I'm searching for information, right? I send out a request. I want some information to get back. And other times I am giving it information and saying, how would you interpret this?
Yeah.
So there's two different uses that we have. And that first use, how do I do this? Or, give me some information. It can help augment the tools we're already using. So let's say I'm building, I'm writing some code for a spreadsheet that we're working on and trying to think, oh, geez, how do I automate this part of the analysis so that it runs faster? I can now ask AI, here's my code, or this is what I'm trying to do. What code should I use? And it will give me, a pretty good first pass.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of manipulation to get it exactly where we want it, but that is saving us a significant amount of analytical time.
Yeah, it's funny as we're talking about this. A couple of things came up in my thoughts is for anyone who has gone to Disney World at Epcot, they have this ride called Spaceship Earth, which basically you're going through and you're watching this basically what we're talking about play out, but from like papyrus to like the Library of Alexandria all the way up, and it's so interesting to think about. Really at its core, I think sometimes technology can be nebulous, like this podcast and how we're getting this to you, right? And really all it is for us from the moment we could start doing this stuff is just how do we get information to other people quicker, and more accurately. That I mean, at its core, that's all technology is doing for us is like bringing information from one person to another person in a faster way.
Right, exactly. And I think that this tool, AI, is helping us both use the tools we have better. It also is helping us develop new tools and be more efficient in the way we do things. I grew up in the spreadsheet era. Like that is my language. I love spreadsheets. That is not the fastest and best way to do everything. Python can handle large data sets a lot more efficiently than an Excel spreadsheet can. AI has helped us bridge that gap. Right, we are doing a lot of our analytical work now through programming as opposed to in spreadsheets. So we have people, like Matt Johnson on our team, who is, becoming a wizard in Python, taking, the ideas that were always already there, and just making it much more efficient for us to use them to analyze that data.
Yeah, I try another analogy is AI is like any other tool, like a hammer, right? Like, sure, you can nail a nail into a wooden plank with a brick or a stone or anything else that you can find, right? But we make that more efficient because if we want to build the house faster and better, right? The tools that allow us to build that house, make it more efficient for us. It's not building the house for us. It's just helping us to do it more efficiently, and so we went from a stone to a hammer to, now there's air gun hammers. Like, I mean, it's just, how can we make this process more efficient, faster, and so that we can be better at our jobs.
Yeah. And AI is developing very quickly. Yeah. So what was not possible 3 months ago may now be possible. So it is quickly developing. And we are, constantly keeping an eye on those developments to see how we can better leverage it to benefit our clients in the end.
Right. At the end of the day, our two words, we've said it in clarity and confidence, and that is our whole goal, is to use the tools to reinforce those two things that we hold precious here at Strategic.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that was a great talk, Doug. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Please see the full disclosure in our show notes for more information.